SMT Nation, we back. Nation, little bit of an expose video. I think it's time we called out the media. I think it's time we called out the marketing. What's true? Well, what's false? So some of the stuff that goes on, gets smattered around, is just absolutely misleading. And let's expose it today. All right, so fresh off the heels of the reports of T-Mobile's deficiencies in the 2.5 frequency and the competition they face with regional providers in states like Maine, right, we're going to be talking about things that could possibly derail their momentum and could cause setbacks to their network expansion and their revenues in selling the home internet and their 5G services. Okay, so links for articles will be in the description. Help you follow along to the stories. Also in the description is the Real SMT Buy Me Coffee link. If you want to show your support for your creators and show your appreciation for all the content that's here on the channel, you can buy us a coffee. And don't forget, kind of wrapping up, here's the deflation promo. Time sensitive. The deal isn't going to last forever. Take advantage of it while it's active. The deflation promo can get you 50% off the unlimited plan from Mint Mobile. So mintmobile.com/sneed. Use our partner link. Save that money. Get that great value, their legendary customer care, and you'll be supporting the channel in the process. All right, folks. So here's the situation, right? T-Mobile is building out a capacitive network that they want to double dip with, right? They want a dual purpose. Mobile network access services and then fixed wireless access to 5G home internet. In order to do so, you must build out a very capacitive network. You need high-grade fiber circuits. You need lots of spectrum. And you need a relatively dense tower grid, right? You need lots of towers everywhere to offload the usage and, splitting cells and providing that type of high-capacity access. All right, now, specifically what we've learned in the last 24 hours is that in places like Maine, where there are a lot of regional providers who own, the N41 type licenses, right? The 2.5 gigahertz frequency that T-Mobile has leveraged its entire future of its capacity on its network, right? They don't even own a majority of it in places like Maine. All right, so for example, in the entire state of Maine, throughout many different counties, right? I don't know how many counties it is, but if you go to Spectrum Omega, you can check on it. T-Mobile basically owns somewhere between 55 and 60 megahertz of 2.5 gigahertz frequencies. That's their N41, their 5G UC. Now, in Spectrum Auction 108, they were able to secure more licenses. Maine was one of those places, I believe, right, where they can get more of that spectrum live. But, folks, it's like 27 megahertz of it. So when you put that with the 60 that they have pre-existing, it still puts them just under 90 megahertz. I don't think that's enough to really do fixed wireless access to scale. To give you perspective, Verizon has 140 megahertz of C-band. I would want to see the 2.5 get up closer to about 120 megahertz for T-Mobile before they started to do this. Because here's the problem. T-Mobile doesn't have any C-band or DoD in Maine. So all they have is their 600 megahertz, their AWS, their PCS from Sprint, the PCS they own, those types of network access assets. So they have spectrum, but to double dip in fixed wireless, you need a little bit more. So this is a problem there. So they got regional providers like Red Zone in Maine, which own 100 megahertz of their future 5G networking. And they're not just going to give it up easily. So, there's a possibility here. Maybe T-Mobile has to buy Red Zone. Maybe they have to acquire them. That's what Verizon does. Look at what Verizon did in Texas, right? With that Western Central Texas company. Look what they did with Bluegrass in Kentucky. Look what they did with Altel in the past. They just buy them outright. But in order to do that, you need capital, which I don't think T-Mobile has, right? They're dedicating a lot of their free cash flows to addressing corporate needs and addressing shareholder value, things that they promised through the merger, right? So T-Mobile will, they'll have to probably overpay for a company like Red Zone because Red Zone has seen increasing revenues annually at like 22%. So expect T-Mobile to pay above, market value by like 20% or something outrageous. And who knows, maybe they don't want to sell. Maybe they like their future prospects. Maybe they're jockeying for position to make themselves more valuable, making T-Mobile have to pay more for them. And of course, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of these regional players across the country that T-Mobile will have to deal with. Right? So, I don't know. This is, there's other states where T-Mobile has these same issues. It's not just Maine. You know, go out west, look at those situations. Right? There's probably a dozen or so states just like Maine. And there are hundreds of counties within each state like this. Right? So, when you take into these considerations, you know, T-Mobile really actually has the weakest spectrum position across a couple dozen states. You know, 2.5 is a mess, the 2.5 gigahertz. You know, 600 megahertz is messy too. They got their issues with Dish. They got their issues with Columbia Capital and leasing, right? The 2.5 gigahertz leases with like churches and schools. Right, how fragmented that spectrum is. Now you kind of see it manifesting itself. You know, now you see why T-Mobile paid the most per megahertz pop for C-band at the auction. And now you see why they paid the most per megahertz pop for DoD. Right, because of these deficiencies and problems and complications with their spectrum holdings. You know, I still to this day remember the 600 megahertz issues with the TV station clearance. And I remember the interference issues with the medical technologies and equipment. Don't forget, 2.5 gigahertz is a noisy frequency with lots of interference and other related issues that T-Mobile frequently has to work around. Poor uplink from any type of distance, right? They don't own and operate their own fiber circuits. And then you have articles like this from Mike Dano back in August of 22. The quiet brilliance of T-Mobile's 5G spectrum strategy. Are you serious? You know, I've always likened the T-Mobile 5G spectrum strategy to like shopping on the clearance rack. It's like thrift shopping, which there's nothing wrong with thrift shopping. That's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is this, folks. This is a map of Verizon's C-band holdings. You will see that across the entire like Northwest. Right? Look at these. These are entire states, by the way. Look at Nevada, parts of Texas, New Mexico, like all these different pockets here. Those are places where Verizon owns 200 megahertz of C-band. And then you have pockets where they have 180 megahertz and 160. That's their average, their national average, and 140. There's not a single county in the entire country where Verizon doesn't have at least 140 megahertz of dedicated mid-band 5G. We're talking about C-band frequencies here. So all this mudslinging from T-Mobile, all the smack talk about C-band and DSS and millimeter wave and all these weaknesses that T-Mobile was pushing in the media, these narratives, are you serious? And then you have articles like this, the quiet brilliance of T-Mobile's 5G. Folks, they have problems that they have to work through. And I'm not putting T-Mobile down. I'm calling a spade a spade. You're looking at the facts. Forget the feelings. Look at the facts. There are issues that they have to work through. It's not that they can't work through them. We're just calling it like we see it here. The marketing, whatever, the raccoonery, buffoonery, right? The games, the mudslinging in the media, it doesn't mean anything. It's all just noise. But when we look at what T-Mobile is trying to accomplish, this is a massive, huge uphill battle in which they are going to be fighting for spectrum from the FCC, who had their spectrum authority stripped by Congress. They're trying to get the rest of those white space licenses, right? They're fighting that battle. They're going to be dealing with churches and schools to try to continue to get access to the 2.5 gigahertz licenses, working through those interference troubles with the medical technologies. I mean, it's just one thing after the other. They have to pay for 10 gig fiber circuits, which they don't own. And they have to densify their network. They still lag behind Verizon and AT&T and rural America, and just coverage that still has not been addressed since the merger. It has improved, like I've said, trying to be objective here. But you cannot look past these things. Right about now, how does Verizon look? Tell me about those C-band holdings across the nation. It looks to me like they're best equipped to sell a mobile network that also serves as a fixed wireless access network. I don't think T-Mobile is equipped to do that across large amounts of the country. By large, I mean county-based level. You tell me where there's a county where Verizon can't do fixed wireless access. Show it to me, because I can't tell by this map. But I can tell you that there are counties and there are states where 5G home internet from T-Mobile is going to be very challenging and very difficult. They've got a lot of work to do. They've got a lot of things to work through. But folks, this is what happens when you have to shop on the clearance rack, right? These are the things that T-Mobile is going to have to work through. I wish them well. I hope for them the best, right? We want them to be strong competitors against Verizon and AT&T and any other ISPs. But I'm not going to sit there and not acknowledge and not accept the truth. I mean, these are real issues here. It is not all, rainbows and unicorns over at T-Mobile, right? It is not all hunky-dory and perfect. They've got stuff to work through. And in my opinion, other companies are better off. All right, what do you guys think? Sound off in the comment section. Let's go ahead and hashtag Verizon, hashtag T-Mobile, hashtag 5G for all the real ones. Thank you guys for watching. Appreciate it very much. Comment down below your thoughts and opinions. You are the voice of the people, the SMT Nation. Let your voice be heard.